Welcome, everyone. In this module from the FinDaS Crypto Economics course, we're going to build out a really solid framework for understanding the entire universe of crypto tokens. The goal here is to get past the buzzwords and the simple labels so you can walk away with a real, functional understanding of how these digital assets are actually designed, what they do, and where their value really comes from.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to build our understanding from the ground up, starting with the absolute basics. What's the difference between a coin and a token? It sounds simple, but it's crucial. From there, we'll look at how to organize the thousands of tokens out there. Then we'll do a deep dive into the big categories like utility and security tokens, explore some really powerful DeFi concepts, touch on identity, and finally, look at how this whole world is starting to connect with traditional finance.
Okay, let's jump right in. To build any kind of framework, you have to start with a solid foundation. And in the crypto world, that foundation is understanding the critical difference between a native cryptocurrency, what we call a coin, and a token. A coin, you see, is the native asset of its own independent blockchain. Think of it as the fuel for its own engine. A token, on the other hand, is built to run on top of a blockchain that already exists.
This visual lays it out perfectly. Over on the left, you've got your native coins like Bitcoin and Ether. These are the absolute lifeblood of their own blockchains, which we often call layer ones because they're the base infrastructure. These coins are essential for the network's most basic functions, like paying for transactions and rewarding the people who keep the network secure. Now, on the right, you have tokens. They don't have their own blockchain. Instead, they're like applications built with smart contracts that run on top of an existing layer one, borrowing its security and its infrastructure.
And you can see here how that basic difference leads to completely different economic designs. Layer 1 coins are all about one thing, securing that base network. Their supply usually goes up over time through what we call block rewards. It's basically how you pay miners or validators for their work. So this often leads to an inflationary model. Tokens, though, they're totally different. They're designed for very specific jobs within an application. Their value isn't about securing a whole network. It's about their utility or their role in governing the app, or maybe through mechanisms that actually reduce their supply, like fee burns. That's why so many tokens are designed to have a fixed or even a deflationary supply.
But, and this is really important to understand, it's not always a black and white distinction. It's much more of a spectrum. In the real world, the lines get pretty blurry. For instance, the native coin of a layer 1 might also give you governance rights over the protocol's future, which feels a lot like a token feature. And on the flip side, a token project might ask its users to stake their tokens to do some kind of work, which kind of mimics a blockchain security model. It's a really dynamic space, so you always have to look closely to understand what an asset truly is.
So now that we know it's a spectrum, how on earth do we bring some order to this incredibly complex universe? I mean, with thousands of different assets, all with their own unique features, we really need some structured ways to classify them. This helps us compare them, figure out their value, and maybe most importantly, regulate them.
A really great place to start is to look at formal regulatory frameworks, because these have real legal teeth. The European Union's MiCA regulation is a perfect example. It gives us a clear legal taxonomy, sorting crypto assets into 4 distinct buckets. Investment tokens, which are basically traditional securities, asset reference tokens, which are stablecoins backed by a mix of assets, e-money tokens, which are stablecoins backed by a single fiat currency, and finally utility tokens, which give you access to a service. This kind of legal clarity is absolutely vital for the industry to grow.
Now, if we look at this from a purely economic or investment angle, we can use an even simpler but really powerful framework. Are these assets productive or non-productive? Productive tokens are the ones that are designed to generate cash flow for the people who hold them, either through direct profit sharing or maybe through buyback and burn programs that return value. And because they generate cash flow, you can actually value them using traditional financial models. Non-productive tokens are different. Their value comes from the rights or the access they give you. Think of it like a membership card or software license. You can't value them based on cash flows. You have to analyze their value through things like network effects and user demand.
All right, let's start peeling back the layers on some of the most common token types. And we'll start with one of the most misunderstood and, frankly, most misused concepts out there, the utility token. This one falls right into that non-productive side of our economic framework.
To really figure out if a so-called utility token has real utility, you have to ask one simple but incredibly powerful question. What can I do with this token that I absolutely cannot do without it? This is the true litmus test. So, for example, if a project says its token's utility is for buying things on their platform, but you could just as easily use dollars or Ether, well, that's not a real unique utility. The utility has to be essential and indispensable to how the whole protocol actually works. And these are some fantastic examples of that difference. Paying for computation on Ethereum with gas is the perfect case. The network literally cannot function without it. Staking a token as a bond is another great one. You're putting your own capital at risk to promise you'll do honest work, and the token is the only asset the protocol will accept for that promise. And, of course, having real governance control, like with Uni, where token holders can literally vote to change the protocol's code. That is a powerful utility you can't get any other way. Now, in complete contrast to utility tokens, we have security tokens. These fall squarely into our productive asset category, and there is zero ambiguity here. These are basically digital wrappers for traditional regulated financial instruments. They give their holders legally enforceable rights like a share of a company's profits, interest payments from a loan, or direct ownership in a real-world asset. And because they're securities, they're subject to all the strict financial regulations that come with that. Let's move on to a really unique and powerful category of productive tokens that have basically become the fundamental building blocks of decentralized finance, or DeFi. These are tokens that don't just have value, but they explicitly represent financial value. The best way to think of them is like intelligent, programmable digital receipts for capital you've put into a DeFi protocol.
This shows the process perfectly. A user starts out with some Ether in their wallet. They deposit that ETH into a lending protocol, say Compound. In return, the protocol mints a brand new token and sends it to them, in this case, CETH. Now, this isn't just a placeholder. It's a fully tradable token that acts as a direct, redeemable claim on their original Ether, plus all the interest it earns. It is their on-chain proof of deposit.
And here's the crucial point. These are not static receipts. They are dynamic, productive assets themselves. First, they're interest-bearing. The value of your CETH actually goes up against ETH over time, automatically capturing that yield. Second, and this is really the magic of DeFi, is their composability. Because CETH is a standard token, you can take it and use it somewhere else, like as collateral to borrow another asset in a totally different protocol. This ability to stack financial money Legos is what makes DeFi so incredibly powerful. And the whole system is radically transparent. Anyone can verify it on the blockchain.
Next up, we're going to explore two fascinating and almost opposite token types that really push the boundaries of what a token can be. On one side, we have tokens that are designed to represent unique identity and public ownership. And on the other, we have tokens designed to do the exact opposite, protect your identity and make sure your transactions are private. So this slide shows the contrast perfectly. On the left, we've got NFTs, which most of us have heard of. Their key feature is that they are transferable certificates of ownership for unique things. But on the right, we have this newer, really interesting concept, soul-bound tokens, or SBTs. Their defining feature is that they are non-transferable. Think about your university diploma or your driver's license. Those are credentials that are permanently tied to your identity, your soul. They prove something about you, and they would be meaningless if you could just sell them to somebody else. That's the whole idea behind SBTs.
Okay, now let's switch gears to privacy. Trying to get confidential transactions on a public blockchain is a huge technical challenge. Projects like Monero and Zcash use some really advanced cryptography, but we can understand the basic ideas with some simple analogies. Ring signatures basically hide the sender in a crowd, kind of like putting your dollar into a basket with 10 other dollars before someone takes one out. Stealth addresses protect the recipient by creating a new, single-use address for every single payment. And zero-knowledge proofs are maybe the most mind-bending. They let you prove that something is true without revealing why it's true. The classic analogy is proving you know a secret password, not by telling me the password, but by using it to open a locked door that only I can see.
All right, for our final section, we are going to cover what might be one of the most significant trends in the entire digital asset space, the tokenization of real-world assets, or RWAs. A lot of people see this as the key that could unlock trillions of dollars in value, and it represents this powerful bridge between the world of DeFi and the established traditional financial markets.
The core idea here is to take assets that are traditionally really hard to trade, things like a piece of commercial real estate or a portfolio of private loans, and create a digital, fractional, and easily transformable version of them on a blockchain. As you can see in this flow, you start with the real-world asset, which is held by a custodian. It then gets legally represented as a token on-chain. This token can then be traded and used within DeFi, which unlocks all the value that was trapped in that original asset and creates markets that are more efficient, transparent, and globally accessible.
And this isn't just a theory, right? Projects are actually doing this right now. Ondo Finance is a fantastic case study. If you look at their products, you can see how this works in the real world. They offer tokens like USDY, which is a claim on a portfolio of US treasuries, making that yield accessible to people all over the world, on-chain. They also have OUSG, which tokenizes an actual BlackRock treasury fund. That's a perfect example of bridging TradFi and DeFi. And then, like many protocols, they have their own separate governance token, Ondo, which is used to manage the protocol itself.
And this brings us back to a really crucial point about how these protocols are designed. The governance token, OND, has a fixed maximum supply, as you can see right here. This choice is absolutely fundamental to its tokenomics. By setting a hard cap, the protocol creates a finite number of voting shares for its whole ecosystem. This scarcity is a critical tool. It makes sure that ownership and control aren't just diluted away over time, which is a key thing to think about when you're analyzing how power is distributed in these important new financial systems.
So as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with a critical question that this whole trend brings up. As we bring more and more real-world assets on-chain, we really have to ask ourselves, which specific legally enforceable rights must a token give its holder to truly justify its value? Is just having a digital IOU enough? Is the right to redeem it for the underlying asset absolutely essential? Or is the answer somewhere in between? This question sits right at the intersection of law, finance, and technology, and the answers we come up with are going to shape the entire future of this industry.
Thank you so much for your participation in this module. We built a pretty comprehensive framework, moving all the way from that foundational coin versus token difference to the absolute cutting edge of real-world asset tokenization. We're going to build on all of these foundational concepts in our next session.
If you're ready to go from theory to practice and apply this blueprint to your own project, please visit us at FinDaS.org. We have more in-depth materials and token design support waiting for you.